Welcome, everybody, to Mentoring Myself. This is a transformational podcast, and I am Natalie J Whyte. I am a transformational lifestyle coach. So I help people live their lifestyle, their happy lifestyle today already, not some far vision in the future. And a lot of what I've learned has come from a whole bunch of experts that I love learning from. And one of my first teachers in the Reiki field was Juan De Beer Odendal. He is now a self-development author. So, Juan, do you want to introduce a little bit yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do now?
Thanks for having me, Natalie. All right, so that's correct. I used to be a Reiki teacher,
Mhm.
but I left that behind a couple of years ago to kind of move on to greener fields or bigger fields, maybe. But it's not even the right word, but I had to move on. And so right now, yes, I am a published self-development author, and I am a practicing therapist working with family relationships and trauma. But I have a special interest in systemic medicine. So that is really about how our family relationships up until 7 generations back, as well as any hidden loyalties, traumas, exclusions, generations back in the system, can actually manifest as chronic, recurring, and acute injuries in the human body.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I haven't really had the chance to discuss it with you before, but I know even for my family, there's been sort of my grand, my mom, myself have had the similar thing. So it definitely does somehow translate into the gene being passed on through whatever the experiences have been. Obviously, in the environment, cues the genes. I'm quite interested in epigenetics as well, so I do understand how that information does get passed on. The important question, let's move on to the important question of the show, which is what advice would you give your younger self? I see that naughty glint in your eye.
Ah, right. So the reason I'm smiling so much about this is because since you've asked me to come onto this podcast, I've really been spending time thinking about this carefully. And I cannot get to any other answer except that life really, in my experience and in my field of expertise, is about the story you tell yourself. It's about your self talk. And when you change that story you tell yourself, you can actually change your life. And to give you an example, growing up, it's well known that I had a traumatic youth. I speak very publicly about it, with a lot of associated religious trauma as well. Um, Amongst one of the greatest traumas for me growing up was being put down constantly, being told you'll never be able to achieve this, you will never be able to achieve that. And actually, going through a period in my life where for a very long time, I actually believed I was stupid, honestly stupid. And along came studying holistic medicine, holistic healing. And I started excelling in something. And that changed the entire story I told myself. And as a part of this question, I spent time thinking about what was the moment, what was the climax, what was the turning point for me. And I remember sitting in the class with my Reiki teacher back then, and like the first class, I think, or second class. And there was a sentence from Louise Hay in the manual, which you quoted directly, which said that every day declare for yourself what you want as if you already have it. And for me, that was a massive turning point. It was also my introduction to the science of mind teachings, or to New Thought thinking, which really the premise of New Thought is change your thinking, change your life. But why was it so powerful for me, that sentence, is as much as there was associated religious trauma, it was drilled into me since I could walk, drink a bottle, I think, that our words, our spoken words, have immense power. Mm-hmm. And I grew up with that, seeing it being demonstrated by my uncles and my cousins who were clergy in the church, actually using that. And that's for me why I then learned about the power of the spoken word through New Thought thinking, science of mind teachings, that sentence really stood out for me so much. So my younger brother asked me this question a couple of years ago, and interestingly, I couldn't answer him back then. And then recently, he also asked me this question, and that is the answer I gave him. So honestly, my answer is, it's about your self-talk. Change your story you tell yourself, change your life.
Beautiful self-talk. I like that. Is there like a daily practice that you recommend to your clients where they can sort of, I don't know, start off the morning with an intentional affirmation or self-talk or something? Like just a simple thing that we could pass on to the listeners.
So I'm a huge proponent of what I like to refer to as practicing speaking affirmation. The reason I say practicing is because in the medical field, we say practice because we're not perfect. So an affirmation is not necessarily something that's going to happen right now. It's something you're going to practice and work towards you. So for me, in my personal life, I use affirmations as a part of my daily life. It used to begin the form of saying affirmations, practicing saying them, but then you move into a state where you start living them. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite affirmations right now it comes from Louise Hay and Robert Holden, who actually wrote the book together, Life Loves You, great book. Mm-hmm. If people want to read something, where the affirmation is, yes, all of life loves and supports me. And they give an exercise where you know those little stars or dots you give kiddies in their books, like mm-hmm. when they get like a good, a gold, when it's not too bad, you get a silver, and when you suck, you get a bronze, but you still get something. So you stick these up around the house, about 10 of them in random places. And whenever you see it, you then would repeat the affirmation to yourself 10 times. And that quickly moves you into a state of living in that affirmation. So for me, it's really a lot is affirmations based. And then it's about moving on to living into the state of being that affirmation. Mm. The other things people know about visualization, as always, meditation, as always. Then, of course, in New Thought thinking, we work with what's known as spiritual mind treatment, or another word for it, if you're that way inclined, is affirmative prayer. So a spiritual mind treatment is like a form of affirming, but it's more a stream of ideas. You actually change your state of consciousness. And an example of that, and why I would say also keep in mind the other word is affirmative prayer, is where something like, I'm one with the universal power that created me. This power has given me the power to create my own circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
There is no lack of support in this universe. Therefore, I now step forth into my true divinity and accept unlimited support for myself. And so it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful, and it's sort of all reminding me. I mean, I think it was about 3 years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think that I trained with you, and I remember the first session you had a good. You were giggling, you were doing like a Sadhguru giggle, where he has an answer and everyone's sitting there and he's giggling his head off trying to explain something to them, and you giggled and you giggled and you said, if you guys understood how easy this is. It's just about your intention, and it's about setting that intention. And I like the idea of the new thought thinking, because it's really it's about this idea of not letting yourself be intoxicated by the thoughts that disempower you, because they can be intoxicating. That especially that poor me, that sense of like, oh, family this, no, it's always been hard, blah blah blah, whatever. It's intoxicating because it's sort of a way of not claiming your full power, and then you can also always just sort of be average and it's all right or whatever. So that's something that you taught me that has, it still rings true. And even not that I practice Reiki per se now, but even with just the constant movement of flow and energy through us has got to do with our intention, to connect with source, and like you said, the universal power. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but I have one more question that's actually scratching my brain here before I listen to you.
So there is something I'd like to add.
Mm-hmm.
So in new thought thinking, there's a saying, and the saying goes, and I think this comes from a science of mind teachings actually, which is a lot of what I taught you guys in the class. A lot of that was new thought thinking based. There's a saying that goes, change your thoughts, change your life. Simple to do, but not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's about belief systems. There are so many belief systems out there that we buy into or we've grown up with, that if you're going to believe it's going to be difficult, it is going to be difficult to you.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I say change the story you tell yourself. Um, so it doesn't have to be difficult. It's a growing practice. It's something you grow into. It's not something that you have to be able to master overnight. And that makes it a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and also you sort of have these phases where you're like, okay, cool, I've got it under wraps, and then you'll be in a situation and up comes some silly like narrative that's disempowering. So you have to, for me, I call it, it's sort of choosing, I call it changing one choice at a time. You each, you get a moment where you have a disempowering thought and go, oh, is this actually helping me or is it paralyzing me? And if for me it's making me disempowered, I'm like, well, I don't like feeling disempowered. It's not really useful to me. And it's not the same as rest. It's not the same. It's about being unable to actually operate because you've got this thought that's plaguing you or making you feel less than. So yeah, it's for people, what I would say is just understand that it's not this instant like mind shift. You have things that are sort of buried that only come up in certain contexts, and when they come up, it's that moment that you need to have that self-awareness where you can go, okay, you know what, this is one of the old patterns, this is one of the old programs, it's not serving me anymore, and I'm going to have a new thought. And you got to practice it. It's not going to happen if you just say it once. It has to be this sort of regular practice. But yeah, the one question that's actually nagging me to ask you here, because it's so personal, and I've experienced it with other people. For me, just literally in the past few months, I was brought up Catholic, and that's quite a pushy, religion. It really is, and so the word God for me, and even the concept of angels, and even saying Jesus Christ, those words used to hold quite a negative charge for me. And just in the last few months, I have been working on specifically the word God, and how, you know, I used to always say the universe is this, source is this, that is this, but now I'm sort of releasing that negative charge and being able to say to the people who relate in a positive way, reach out to God, pray to God, connect with God, and knowing that it's all the same, it's the source, the universe, or whatever. But it really rang in my, like, little bell rang for me when you said a lot of the programs and a lot of the belief systems, from this religious dogma can have a damaging effect. Yeah.
So, yes, that really is what my first book is about also.
Oh, wow.
When I wrote Magic Mirror Mind, I had to give it a subtitle, and it was hard work to come up with a subtitle. And the subtitle is Claim Personal Power, Find Wholeness, and Awaken Potential After Abuse and Trauma. Now, this doesn't mean that this book was just written for people who've been through abuse or experienced severe trauma. We all have associated traumas and belief systems stemming from our childhood, and many, many, many of those beliefs stem from our religious upbringing. And a huge focus of this first book of mine was about shifting what I like to call self-limiting and self-sabotaging religious beliefs. But what applies to shifting those beliefs? The same methodologies, the things I talk about, write about, the exercises I write about, applies to any other issue you really have in your life.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, yes, a lot of my issues actually came from religion. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote the book on that. Um, Beliefs like it's better to give than receive. And your client sitting in front of you and they struggling with poverty, or your client believes that Jesus died on the cross, so therefore they take on a rescuer role where it's the person who will always be out there saving everyone,
Mm-hmm.
to never look at their own problems, to actually associate with the Christ martyr archetype.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of those I can refer to. Many, many, many I can refer to. But there are other beliefs which actually can support us. Like, I think in Genesis, where it goes, go forth and be fruitful. Now, many people interpret that as, all right, let's go forth and populate the earth, which is fine if people want to do that. But it's about abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So are you only restricting yourself to that belief that it's about populating the earth?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you look at the deeper meaning behind it, the metaphysical behind it, which actually the grand organizing power, which I think my definition of God has become lately, actually wants us to go forth and be happy. Look at Buddhism. Buddha devoted his whole life to actually helping people be happy by accepting that, you're going to have problems in the life. Just you're going to suffer a bit. No matter how many affirmations you do or prayers you say or smudge sticks you burn or how much crystals you pack on your head, you're going to have your challenges. It's how you get through those challenges, which are very important. Right now, to be honest, in the current circumstances we are in, if I understand your question correctly, is it important for people to have a connection with source right now? And how are their beliefs impacting that? Do I understand the question correctly?
So the question, it was more like a discussion point of how we have these religious dogmatic phrases and words and understanding, just like you explained there from, it's better to give than to receive, and how you like rewriting the story. Like I'm getting to that. There's a lot of rewriting that's happened, but particularly for me, the word God was so difficult that the first time I read Conversations with God, I only got a couple of chapters in and I had to put the book down because I was like, seriously, this is getting too much now. But a little bit later, as I sort of matured and that negative charge dropped away from the word. I mean, I've read the first 3 already because I just was like, wow, this is incredible, So it's these certain words that have these, because of the religious dogma behind it or because of the upbringing or whatever, that these words are full of this. So I feel like what you are doing is also change the narratives, change the story about the certain words and the certain phrases that we use. Because if I say to you, pray to God, for one person, that can be like, oh, please, get a grip. And another person can be like, yes, we're gonna all put our prayers together. We're gonna ask God to bless us and whatever. So it's gonna have these different connotations. And yeah.
Here's an interesting point of view I've been thinking about. So first, yes, the power of the spoken word and also the power of the written word, hey? Yes, so let's change the story that you're telling yourself right now.
Sure.
So, and I'm going to actually use something that really happens, something I deal with quite a bit. I am a part-time medic in emergency medical services, but I've really put my focus on doing suicide crisis intervention on scene with patients and first responders. And that's not the reasons I also went into trauma. Now, when you get to a scene like that, and just with a family or a first responder that is very traumatized, one of the first things that we will often do in South Africa is we will want to phone the pastor or the reverend or the priest. The thing is that the support that person wants at that point in time? Is that the right support for them? For somebody like me, and maybe even for yourself, that could be very triggering. Because remember, when you're in such a traumatized state, you're not in your right mind. You're in 3 modes: fight, or freeze. So one of the most important things for me to do on scene is to actually bring in the correct support. Another example, maybe a lady has a miscarriage. Many men will actually think of phoning the husband. Meantime, it's the last person she wants to see at that point in time. So why I'm bringing this up is because for me, God is a universal power that I am one with,
Mm-hmm.
kind of my battery I tap into, where I kind of draw my energy, my creativity, my ideas from. But for my support system, that can be God in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I would ask somebody like this in session is I would start with, and let's throw the question back into your side of the tennis court. So what is God for you?
Mm-hmm. For me, everything, the intelligence of everything.
So for me, I've changed that word to support.
Oh,
For
beautiful.
you, you can change that word to intelligence,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
grand, universal organizer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying that goes, and some people will actually recognize this out there. Um, the grand geometrician of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
or the great architect of
Mm-hmm.
the universe.
Mm.
So many years ago, that was actually when I got very triggered. That was one of the things which worked really well for me, was actually when the word was changed to the grand geometrician or the grand architect. Remember, Genesis 1 says what? In the beginning was the word,
Mm-hmm.
and the word was with God. So change the word God to
Mm-hmm.
support, to
Yes.
intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Change the story you tell yourself.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's beautiful advice. That is so fantastic. John, I'm going to wrap us up here. Even though I could like just speak to you forever and listen to you forever, I really need to get my hands on your book and have a read of it. I think I will thoroughly enjoy it. It's been a couple of years, but it doesn't feel like a moment has passed. I appreciate you coming on so much. It's so good to download some of your wisdom and share some of your wisdom. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, I think there's a lot of people out there that really would like to work on their sort of, like you say, that generational trauma, that the changing of the generational narrative. So how can people get hold of you or get hold of your book?
So there's a couple of places they can get hold of me. Um, the book is available from Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
So Magic Mirror Mind
Mm-hmm.
by Juan De Beer Odendal, which is my pen name. Then obviously, if people want a signed copy, they can order signed copies from me, and they can actually email me at info
Mm-hmm.
at my name, JuanOdendal.com. JuanOdendal. I had to think a
Dot
moment
com.
about my own name there. Eh? So, so info at JuanOdendal.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you search me on there, you actually can get all my contact details.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind actually giving my contact details out on a platform like this because it's out there anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so for sessions or for a signed copy or for an ebook, that's where you can find it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I want to wish you so much luck and ease and support with your new piece of writing. I look forward to it coming out, and obviously, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Natalie. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, it is it's my total pleasure. Have a super day.
Keep well.
Okay, bye.